The right to bear arms is a hot-button issue in America. Many see it as a fundamental right, enshrined in the Constitution by the Second Amendment. Others view it as outdated and dangerous. This debate often centers around legal interpretations and statistics. But there's a deeper theological dimension we cannot ignore. Is the right to keep and bear arms a God-given right? This question cuts to the core of how we view human rights and the role of government. If rights are granted by government, they can be taken away. But if our rights are endowed by our Creator, they are inalienable and sacred. This perspective shaped the Founding Fathers' understanding of liberty. It's a view deeply rooted in the Judeo-Christian tradition. It's about self-preservation, resisting tyranny, and preserving the liberty that God intended for us. The Founding Fathers believed our rights are not granted by governments but by God. This is enshrined in the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. It asserts that rights are not gifts from a king or a powerful state. They are inherent, given by God at the moment of our creation. As image bearers, we possess intrinsic dignity and rights that no human authority can revoke. This understanding fueled their fight for independence. This principle that rights come from God, not government, is the bedrock of American liberty. The right to self-defense is primal, woven into the fabric of our being. It's an instinct present in all living creatures. This right is not granted by any earthly authority. It's a natural right derived from our inherent right to life. The Bible affirms the right to self-defense. Exodus 22. 2 states, "If a thief is found breaking in and is struck so that he dies, there shall be no blood guilt for him." It recognizes that individuals have a moral right to protect themselves from violence. The belief in armed self-defense was not limited to revolutionaries and statesmen during the colonial era. It permeated the sermons and writings of many colonial pastors who saw no contradiction between their faith and the ownership of firearms. These men of God recognized that protecting one's family and community from violence was a moral imperative. Reverend John Wise, a prominent Congregationalist minister, argued that self-preservation is the first law of nature. He wrote, "For every man as he is endued with a power of self-preservation, so he is endowed with a right to use all lawful means and methods in order to his own safety." Wise's words resonated with colonists who faced constant threats from wild animals, hostile natives, and potential tyranny. Pastor John Dickinson, known as the penman of the Revolution, echoed these sentiments. He wrote, "The defense of oneself, justly, naturally, and absolutely, makes part of his very personality." Dickinson believed that surrendering the means to defend oneself was akin to surrendering one's freedom and dignity. These pastors, steeped in Scripture and guided by their faith, understood that being a faithful Christian did not preclude the use of firearms. They recognized that self-defense and the protection of liberty were not merely political acts, but moral obligations. Section 5. Addressing pacifist objections. Some argue that the Bible advocates for pacifism, citing verses like Matthew chapter 5, verse 39. "But I say to you, do not resist an evil person. But whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn the other to him also." However, this interpretation ignores the context of Jesus' teachings and the broader biblical narrative. Jesus was speaking to individuals facing personal insults, not addressing the legitimate use of force to protect the innocent or defend against tyranny. The Bible clearly distinguishes between personal vengeance and righteous defense of oneself and others. Moreover, pacifism, while noble in theory, often proves impractical and even dangerous in the modern world. Turning the other cheek to a tyrant only emboldens him. It leaves the innocent vulnerable to further oppression. As Edmund Burke famously said, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." Pacifism, while well-intentioned, fails to account for the reality of evil. It offers no solution to the threat of tyranny or the protection of the vulnerable. The responsible use of force, guided by moral principles, is sometimes necessary to uphold justice and protect the innocent. Section 6. Firearms, a bulwark against tyranny. Throughout history, firearms have played a crucial role in resisting tyranny and safeguarding liberty. The Founding Fathers, acutely aware of the dangers of unchecked government power, enshrined the right to bear arms in the Second Amendment to ensure that the people would always have the means to defend themselves against tyranny. The Second Amendment states, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." This amendment recognizes that a well-armed citizenry is the ultimate deterrent against government overreach. History is replete with examples of governments disarming their citizens only to later turn on them. In the 20th century alone, we witnessed the horrors of genocide and totalitarian regimes in Nazi Germany, Soviet Russia, and Communist China, all of which disarmed their populations before unleashing unimaginable atrocities. These tragedies serve as stark reminders that the right to bear arms is not merely about hunting or self-defense. It's about preserving the very essence of a free society. It's about ensuring that the people retain the ultimate check on government power. Section 7. History's warning: disarmament leads to disaster. The 20th century stands as a chilling testament to the dangers of disarmament. Time and again, regimes seeking absolute power first disarmed their citizens, leaving them vulnerable and defenseless against tyranny. In Nazi Germany, the Weimar Republic's gun registration laws, ostensibly enacted for public safety, paved the way for the Nazi regime to confiscate firearms from Jews and other undesirables. This disarmament facilitated the Holocaust, as millions were rounded up and exterminated, unable to resist their oppressors. In Soviet Russia, the Bolsheviks, after seizing power, implemented strict gun control measures, disarming the populace and consolidating their grip on power. This allowed them to carry out widespread purges and establish a totalitarian state that terrorized its citizens for decades. These examples, though horrific, offer a powerful lesson. A disarmed populace is easy prey for tyrants. When citizens cannot defend themselves, they are at the mercy of those who hold the power of the sword. The right to bear arms, therefore, is not just an individual right. It's a bulwark against tyranny and a safeguard for freedom. Section 8. The Second Amendment. A covenant with God. The Second Amendment is more than just a legal provision. It's a covenant with God, a recognition of the divine right to self-defense and the duty to resist tyranny. It's an acknowledgement that our freedoms are not granted by earthly governments, but endowed by our Creator. This understanding informed the Founding Fathers' vision for America. They believed that the right to bear arms was essential for preserving liberty and preventing the rise of tyranny. They understood that a disarmed populace is a subjugated populace vulnerable to the whims of those in power. The Second Amendment, therefore, is a sacred trust passed down through generations of Americans. It's a reminder that freedom is not free. It requires constant vigilance and a willingness to defend it. It's a testament to the belief that we are ultimately accountable not to earthly powers, but to a higher authority. By upholding the Second Amendment, we honor the sacrifices of those who came before us. We preserve the legacy of liberty that they fought so hard to secure. We fulfill our duty as citizens of a free republic, entrusted with the sacred responsibility of safeguarding our God-given rights. Section 9. Our sacred duty. The right to bear arms is not about aggression. It's about deterrence. It's about sending a clear message that we, as free citizens, will not be easy prey for tyrants, that we will not stand idly by while our liberties are eroded, that we are willing to defend our freedoms, our families, and our way of life. This right is absolute, and it comes with responsibilities. Responsible gun ownership includes proper training, secure storage, and a commitment to using firearms only for lawful purposes. But these responsibilities should not be used as an excuse to infringe upon this fundamental right. As we navigate the complexities of the gun control debate, let us remember the theological foundation upon which this right rests. Let us recall the words of our founding fathers and the lessons of history. Let us recognize that the right to bear arms is not just about guns, it's about freedom. Section 10, the eternal vigil. In 1776, the Founding Fathers stated in the Declaration of Independence that rights are from God and are unalienable, and they later guaranteed this freedom in the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. By doing so, they made it very clear that there should be no limits on the right of law-abiding citizens to own and carry firearms. Want proof? Look no further than the Second Amendment, which says that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. To say no infringements is another way of saying no limitations. That is, no registration of guns or gun owners, and no background checks, no waiting periods, no ammunition or weapons bans. The words "shall not be infringed" indicate that this right cannot be limited or diminished in any way. This was the view of our Founding Fathers. For them, God-given rights were equal to unalienable rights that should not be limited by the government or by the whims of the majority. This view was preached in the pulpits by the colonial pastors, and it has become the heritage that Americans have enjoyed for more than 200 years. It is our duty as citizens to resist any infringement on our rights. Our rights are not up for debate or negotiation. Our rights don't end where someone else's feelings begin. We must stand firm and resolute. We must not respect or follow any law that restricts our rights in any way. Stay frosty, my friends. Keep your head down and your powder dry.